Hey everyone, it's Kabir here. So in last session we saw how can we dynamically create an element, or how we can create an attribute or add attribute, remove the attribute, or we can update the attribute value as well, right? Today we are going to see some important concept called callback functions. Now this callback function is used in many places, right? Not only in JavaScript. Now if you wanted to use it in a React or Angular, then you will be seeing this term, right? In the same way in Node.js and Express.js, you are going to see this term extensively because they are going to use this callback function. So this is very important concept, right? So what is callback functions? So let me create a file known as callback.js. Now if I'm saying something like function, something like dummy, so what I have did, I have created a function. Now why we have to create this function? If you wanted to use some piece of code, some set of code in many times or many places, then for reusability we are going to create the functions, right? Now this is called your normal function, right? Now if this function is going to take some values, like if I wanted to pass some values to this function, right, then that values we can pass through arguments. Means here we have to pass. Now this place is called argument, so we are passing the argument. So why we use argument? To pass some data for these functions. Now this argument might be a string, it might be a number, it might be some date or decimal, it can be anything. In the same way, argument can be a function also. Means for this function I am passing one more function as an argument, right? Now this argumented function is called callback function. Means if any function you are passing as an argument, that argument function is called callback function. Okay, now this particular function is taking a function as an argument, so this function is called higher order function. So there might be a question, like they will be asking for a freshers, like what is higher order function and what is callback function. So higher order function is nothing but a function which take argument as a function, is called a higher order function. Now here dummy is higher order function. Now if I pass some function as an argument inside this dummy, then the passed argument function is called callback function. For example, here I am saying like f. Okay, now here I am defining one function like function f, and I am saying console.log callback function, right? Now this function, this function I wanted to pass to this function as an argument. So I took one reference like f, right? Now once I took the reference f, now if I want to execute this particular function, means I have to call this function. So how can we call? Simply I will be saying dummy. Okay, now whenever I will call this function, my requirement is for this function I need to pass some argument, so I have to pass here. But what argument I need to pass? I need to pass a function as an argument, means I need to pass this function. So I will be saying f. So I'm calling this function. Now this function is taking one argument f is nothing but this particular function, right? So it means that I'm passing one function as an argument to this function. Now here f is called callback function, your dummy function is called higher order function. Now if I save it and execute, call back. Now here we are not able to see anything. Why we are not able to see anything? Because we have passed this function to dummy as an argument, but we are not calling this function. Now if I want this function should be executed, then this function should be called inside this functions somewhere. So I am calling here, so I am here saying console.log, and here I am just writing something like dummy. Now after this statement I wanted to call this callback function. Now this callback function is present in f. Now f is nothing but one argument, and the type of argument is function. Means in this f we have a function. What is the function? This f. So I will be just saying f. That's it. Now if you execute it, now first we got dummy because this particular statement has been executed. Now the control comes to this statement, it is going to see f. So it will go to this f and it will see which function is stored in this f. I have stored this one, right? So it will execute this function. Now just consider I have wrote this one as f1 and I will be writing one more function as a f2. Now here I will be saying console.log f2 is called, and here let me say something like f1 is called. Now if you see, I have totally three functions, right? First function is dummy, second function is f1 and f2. Now dummy function is taking one argument and this argument is nothing but function, right? So this dummy function is called higher order function. Now as we are passing some function as an argument to this dummy, so this passed argument function are called callback functions, right? Now if I execute, now you will get an error like f is not a function. So if I execute it, now you got some kind of error. What is the error? F is not defined or f is not a function. Means, what do you mean by this? This particular f is not defined. What is this f? Is it string? Is it function or what? Because here we are passing f, but we don't have anything like f. If I pass f1, so we are calling this dummy, means the control will come here. Okay, now it is taking one parameter, means one argument, and that argument is nothing one function. Means in this dummy we are passing this f1 function. Now this f1 function will come and store in this f. Okay, now whenever you call this line, the control will comes to dummy, it will start executing. So first statement will be executed, now second statement will be called. Now we call it as a function. So first it will check whether it is a function or not. Yeah, it is a function. Now it will see which function is stored in this reference f. Then we stored f1, right? So the control will comes to f1 and it will execute. Now if you execute it, now we got f1 is called. Now if you pass f2 instead of f1, now whenever the control comes here, it will call dummy. So control will comes to here. Now it will see it requires one argument. Now it will check whether argument is passed or not. Yes, argument is passed. But what is the type of this function argument? It is a function. What is which function? f2. So this whole function will be stored in this f, right? Now this particular statement will be executed. Now again the control comes to this statement and it will execute. So it will first see which function is stored in this f. f2 we have stored. So the control will jump to f2. It will not jump to f1. It will jump to f2. Now it will execute f2 is called. Let's see. Now we got f2 is called. So here this f1 and f2 are called callback functions because this function is passed as an argument. And this dummy is called a higher order function because this function is taking one function as an argument. So don't confuse what is higher order function, what is callback function. It is very important, little tricky, but it's very important. Okay. Now this is just reference. Okay. It's not mandatory you have to take f. You can take anything, but with the same reference you have to call. For example, here I am saying something like name. If I save it, right? Now this f2 function is stored in the name, but you are calling f. So now see, now you got an error. Now what is the error? F is not defined. Now you wanted to call this name, so instead of f you have to say it has name. Now if you execute it, now we got the result, dummy and f2 is called. So this is the concept of your callback functions. Okay, now if anyone asks, it's very easy. A function is passed as argument, then that function is called callback function. The function which take another function as the argument, that function is called higher order function. So that's all for the callback functions. Now we have some functions called setTimeOut and setInterval. Now sometimes you get a requirement where you have to execute some piece of code after some time, like after 5 seconds or after 2 seconds, like you wanted to execute some piece of code. Now if you get such requirement, if you wanted to fulfill such requirement, now JavaScript provides some predefined functions. The functions are called setTimeOut and setInterval. Now what is setTimeout and setInterval? Let us see. So here I am going to create one file known as setTimeout.js. Now what is setTimeout? Now this is a function which is given by JavaScript. So set time out. So this is a function, so I have to call the function. Now this function is predefined. It means the logic for this function has been already written. Just you have to call that function if you wanted to execute. So now this particular statement is called, we are calling the function set timeout. Now this function will take one argument. That argument is function. So if I wanted to write one argument, that argument should be function. So here I'm writing one function. Now whenever you are writing something like a function inside an argument, that time, I mean to, if you are defining any function inside another function's argument, then you should not give any name to that function. Directly you can write keyword function, open the parenthesis, close the parenthesis, and open the curly braces, close the curly braces. Now this particular function, this function is present inside this parenthesis, means we are passing this function as a callback. So this function is called callback function, and set timeout is called higher order function, because set timeout function is taking another function as an argument. Okay, that's cool. Now this function, okay, now this function will be called by set timeout. Okay, but when it will be called, you have to mention, like I want to call this function after 3 seconds. Now it will take one more argument called time. Now that time is present in milliseconds. So 1000 milliseconds equals to 1 second. So I wanted to call this after 2 seconds. Okay, now this function is called by set timeout after 2 seconds. Now set timeout we are calling, right? But internally set timeout will call this function after 2 seconds. Now if you get any requirement where you have to perform some operation after 2 seconds, whatever operation you wanted to perform after 2 seconds, that operation logic you have to write inside this function. Like here I am saying console.log. I have called after 2 seconds. So now this statement will execute after 2 seconds. Okay, now I am executing it. So how we have to execute? Node set time out. So we are calling set timeout, means this set timeout function will be called. Now this function internally will call this function, but when it will call, it will see the second parameter, how much time you have mentioned. You have mentioned like after 2 seconds. So this callback function will be called after 2 seconds. So let me see, let me enter. Now see, it is waiting. Now it have typed. Now we got the result after 2 seconds. Let me see one more time. So note, I am executing. It is waiting, executed. Means I have called after 2 seconds. This particular statement has called after 2 seconds. Now how we have set timeout? Like this, we have one more function called setInterval. Now this setInterval call, okay, let me show you. So let me comment it. Okay, fine. Now we have one more predefined method called setInterval. Okay, now this is also function, so we have to call the function. I have called the function. Now this setInterval is a higher order function. If it is a higher order function, means it will take one function as an argument, and that function is callback function. So function, some function it took, right? In the same way, here also second argument will be time. So here I am saying 2 seconds, right? 2 seconds. Now this, what this set interval will do, it will call this function for every 2 seconds. It will not stop until you write some code and stop this function. So whatever code you are going to write here, it will be called for every 2 seconds, like console.log. And here I am saying I have called for every 2 seconds. It means we are calling set interval. What set interval will do? It will call this function, but when it will call for every 2 seconds. So if I execute it, see, one time it is called, again it is called, again it is called, again it is called. Now it will be calling infinite time until unless you stop this application, right? So it will be calling. So I'm just stopping it. So what is the difference between set timeout and set interval? Set timeout will see the what you passed in second argument, means how much time you have passed. Then after that seconds of time or minutes or hours, it will call this function, but it will call only one time. That's it. But what set interval will do, now it will see second argument, whatever time you have mentioned in that particular interval of time, it will call. So it will call multiple times unless until you stop this particular function. Now my requirement is I wanted to define one set timeout and one set interval. Now here I wanted to execute this set interval for 5 times. After executing 5 times, I have to stop. So if you wanted to stop this set interval, we have one more method, which is predefined method called clear timeout. We have to call this function. Whenever you are going to call this function, now it will stop the set interval, right? Now whenever you call this set interval, right, you have to get some, you have to store it in some reference. So I will be saying like var set interval reference. Okay, now we have stored this function in a variable called set reference. Now this set reference should be passed as an argument to this clear timeout. Set I ref. Okay, now whenever this particular line will be executed, this particular set interval logic will be stopped. But when we wanted to execute this after 12 seconds, because here I'm mentioning 2 seconds, means for every 2 seconds it is executing, and now my requirement is it should execute 5 times, means 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. In 10 seconds it will execute 5 times. In 12th second, I mean whenever it is like 12th second, that time I wanted to stop. So what I will do means I need to perform this particular operation after 12 second, means after means we have to use the set timeout. So what I will be doing, I will just uncomment this. So let it be, I will be writing one more time. So I need to perform one operation after 12 seconds. Like this, if you get requirement, then you have to go for the set timeout. So set timeout. Now what set timeout will do? Now set timeout will take one function as an argument. So function. Now another function is nothing but it will take time, means set timeout asks us when I have to execute this function. I am telling like execute this particular function after 12 seconds, means 12,000 milliseconds. After 12 seconds, this function will execute. So what you wanted to do, you wanted to clear this set interval. So if you wanted to create this set interval, you have to call clear timeout. So this particular statement, I want to call after 12 seconds. Save it. Right now, whenever you are going to execute this particular file, it will first execute this set interval. Now here you have mentioned 2 seconds, means for every 2 seconds this function will execute. 2 seconds it will execute, 4 it will execute, 6 it will execute, 8 it will execute, 12 it will execute, in 12 in 10 it will execute, in 12 also it will try to execute. But before that, set timeout will be executed, because you told set timeout should be executed, means this callback should be executed after 12 seconds. Now what set timeout will do after 12 seconds, it will call this function. Now in this function, what you are writing clear timeout, means you are stopping this particular function. Now if you save, one, two, three, 4, 5, and it has been stopped. Now here you are not able to see exactly, right? So what I will be doing, I will take something like where IU equals to something like 0, right? Okay, then here I will be saying IU equals to I plus 1, means we are incrementing the I value. Now this I should be attached here. So I will say IU plus something, means we are attaching. Now if I execute the same function, now this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and stopped, means we have executed this 5 times. Just give space and execute once again. 1, 2, now just watch output, 3, this is the 4, now this is the 5th. Now whenever 6th, this will execute and it will clear the timeout, means we have stopped it. Now this is what your time out and set timeout and set interval. Now this is also very important function. You have to practice, little bit confusion, but it's fine. You can do it. Once if you practice for 2-3 times, you will understand it very easily. So just try to practice first this example, understand how it is working, understand each and every step. Then you try to do some experiments and try to practice it. Okay. Now this is about all about your time set out and time interval. Now it is taking one callback function. So that's why I have taught you guys first callback functions, then coming to set timeout and set interval. Now we are going to see some methods in the arrays, right? Now here we have the array, right? Now let me comment all this. Now we saw something like push, pop, shift, unshift, right? Now we have some more. Now just consider I have an array. Now I have some array. So array of some names. So where names equals to, this is the array. Now it contains multiple names. So like Kabir, then we have something like Jia, then we have something like Santosh, right? Then we have something like Aryan, then we have something like 33, okay? Then Aish, okay? Now I have one array called names which contains some elements. Here the Kabir is first element, Jia is second element, Santosh is third element. Now the index of Kabir is 0, index of Jia is 1. We already know. Now my requirement is I wanted to print each and every element. So how can we print? means we have to pick first element and we have to print. We have to pick next element, again we have to print. Means we need to perform some operation for some time based on condition. So if you wanted to execute some set of lines of code for multiple times based on some condition, then we go for one loop called while loop. Now how while loop looks? We have to write a keyword called while. Okay, this is like a function. So done. Now open and close. Open curly braces and close the curly braces. Now here you have to write some condition. Any conditions you have to write. Now this condition will return boolean, true or false. If it is a true, it will execute this line of code. So whatever you will write here, so you will write, just consider you wrote some statements. Now this particular statements will be executed until this condition become false. Okay. Now once this condition become false, then this line will not execute, right? For example, I am saying something like I value, right? Now here I am mentioning I equals to 1, right? Now the value of I is 1. It is 1 means it will consider as a true. If you pass any value like numeric value like 45 or 100 or 99, whatever you pass, it will consider as a true. If the value is 0, then it will consider this particular condition as a false. Now this is a by default. Apart from 0, whatever value you are going to keep here, it is going to consider as a true. If you keep 0, it is going to consider as a false, right? Now just consider I declared I equals to 10. Instead of 1, I have declared I equals to 10. Now here in while I am passing I. Now whenever I execute this function, I is nothing but 10. So 10 means it is true. So this line will be executed. Now here I am saying IU equals to I minus 1. Means I am changing the value of I. Now I became 9. Again it will come here. Now this term I is 9, right? It will be 9. 9 means true. Again it will execute. Then again it will come here. Now 9 minus 1, 8. Now I will be 8. Then again it will come here. Now the value is 8. Again it will execute. Now like this loop will be executed continuously till the value becomes 0. Now once the I becomes 0, now if the 0, it means this is a false, means this condition will not execute. Now it will stop the execution and come outside of this loop. Now this is the functionality of your while. Okay, how we have if else, in the same way we have while also. Now while will take one condition, like how if will take a condition, in the same way while will take a condition. Now while block, this is a block, right? While block, here you will write some set of code. Now this code will be executed unless until this particular condition become false. Okay, that's the syntax and that is the concept of your while. Okay, now our requirement is I wanted to print each and every value. Means I want to print each and every element of this array. It means first of all we have to take this element, then we have to print. Then we have to take another element, then we have to print. Then we have to take third element and we have to print, right? So for that what we will be doing, I will be writing one function. Function array. One something. Right? Now I have to write some logic in this function. That logic, what we are going to write means we are going to take each and every element from this array and we are going to print, right? Now if I wanted to take one element from here, as of now we know pop. What pop will do, it will remove last element, but I don't want it to be last, I want it to be first. So for that we have shift. What shift will do, it will remove the first element and it will return this first element. Okay, so what I will be doing, names dot shift, I will call this function. Means what this function will do, it will go to this array names, it will pick the first element and it will remove and it will return. Return means I have to catch, I have to store somewhere. So I am saying where value equals to. Now first time it will comes to name. First time what shift will do, it will comes to the name, it will see the first element, it will remove and it will store in the value. Now here I will say console.log of value. Done. We have did the value.